Let's take a look at the rental and loan related functionality in JobPro. In the Jobs and Tasks modules, we're able to specify on the Resources tab what resources we'd like to book in or use for a job or a task. For example, contacts, units or assets, and locations. So from a rental and loan point of view, we can deal with units and assets and locations here. We can also set these up to have charge out rates per hour, per day, or just per rental or per loan. And we've also the ability to create an invoice or bill from a job that's using resources for rental or loan use. You can also use this functionality just to book in resources to use on jobs. So the first thing we need to do is see how we set up assets or locations like rooms that we want to maybe rent or book out or loan to customers as well. So we'll have a look at products first. So let's look at the list screen. And let's go and find something that we track by serial number. So let's pick, for example, Apple TV. In here we're specifying that we track this item in stock and by serial number. So that means then for every one of these items that's been introduced into the system, usually on a purchase order for example, we're able to track those particular items, book them in on jobs, maybe for rental use, for loan use, or for selling as well. So this tutorial is going to focus on the rental or loan use of these types of items. So one of the things that we can do is we can click and view a specific item, and we're now in the units module. So for this item we can see where it came in this case it was received on a purchase order, but we can also create a booking from it here as well. So let's create a booking for this item. So this creates a job. We can specify who the customer is, and on the resources tab in the job the item has already been added, and then we can specify the dates that this item is going to be rented out or loaned to the customer. So let's say it's over a 2-day period, and then we can repeat those dates in here, because you can use a job for more than just a resource booking for an individual item. We might also set a start time and finish time as well. So this item now has been booked in for purpose of, we'll say, rental use. These drop down menus you can specify in setup under list and menus, but these are just some samples. So when the item is picked up or delivered out to the customer, we can set it to in progress. So that item now will show as in progress if we take a look at the actual specific unit or asset record for that item. Here we can see the booking that we just created, and currently the status is that it's on rent or loan on a specific job number. So we have a way of actually going to that job as well, from either here or from within here. So back on the job screen, if we take a look at the resource screen or the full screen for this resource line, we can do things like set it to be billable. Then we can specify the rate type. Is it rate per hour, rate per day, rate per booking? So let's say rate per hour. Now the price for that can be specified for every product. So you can set a rental price per hour or per day or per rental as well. So then the defaults would come in here, and you can also edit them from within here as well. So let's return to the job screen. Now, other areas that we can use for rental or loan use is locations. Now, one of the main features for the locations module is for stock locations, for tracking what's in stock at potentially multiple stock locations. But another use for locations is to set up a location like a room or an office or a building for rental use. So let's go into locations and have a look at that. So let's create a new location and we call it Studio 5, and we can say type is, we'll just say an office, but you can specify different types in lists of menus and setup here. And we'll specify that this is a bookable location. Even a bookable location could be used for stock purposes. So on the bookings tab for this location, we can then put in the default rate per hour, rate per day, or just a flat rate per booking either. And from here we can also create a booking, which will create a job. But if we go to the job that we were currently on, and we'll just add that location in here, Studio 5. Okay. So also then for this particular line, if we drill down to it, we can set in setup, and I'll show you that now in a minute, where we can default specific resource types like contacts, assets, and locations to be billable automatically, so we don't have to click billable every time we come in here. But in this case, we're just going to click billable. We'll set the rate type to be per hour. It defaults to the sell price per hour of 50. It automatically calculates the quantity. We can round that up and down as well, which is more useful for rounding up or down based on a day, for example. And we can also specify it's been billed or not. Now usually this is automatically set on creating an invoice from billable costs like rental items on a job. So let's click on return. And if we go into setup from the home screen, and if we have a look at the jobs tab in setup, here we can see under the resource defaults for rental use on jobs, we can set resources as billable for contacts automatically, for locations automatically, or for units which are the same as assets automatically. And we can also default the round billing quantity up or down from here as well. So let's turn all of these on. Now this resource functionality is also available in tasks as well. So we can book items, rental or loan use, for tasks as well as jobs. So go into tasks and we view any task here. We'll see that there's a resources tab at this level as well. If a task is linked to a job and you've booked items on it for rental use or for loan use, well, they'll also appear on the job screen. So if we go back into jobs, they'll appear under the resource section and they'll be flagged that they've come from a task. So if you then, for example, want to invoice out any rental related items, we can click on invoices and we can create invoice from costs. And in here we can see a couple of billable resource items that we can then invoice out linked to that job. We can also change the sell price here if needs be. So let's go and create the invoice. On creating an invoice from chargeable costs, we have the ability to say whether we want it as a summary invoice or a detailed invoice. A summary invoice would group everything by category, but we're not using the category field in this example. A detailed invoice is going to separate, in this case, two different lines on the invoice. So we click detailed. So now on the invoice we've got our full information relating to the items for rental use with the quantities and the totals as well. And if we go back into the job, which we can do by clicking on this, and if we have a look at the resources, then we can see if we view one of those that it's now been flagged as billed automatically. So the next time you want to go and create an invoice from costs from that job, if you've added any additional costs, it'll actually show you that in this case there's no more billable costs because they've already been invoiced out. Another area related to the rental and loan functionality in JobPro is when we're setting up a location, there's different types of locations, or should I say stock usage. So let's say we're setting up a location that's its purpose is for stocking products and assets, but those products and assets are for rental use as opposed to for sale use. So let's put in a rental stores location. And in here we'll say that the stock usage is for rent or loan use. Now that doesn't specifically mean that this item or this location is bookable like a room or a studio or something that you're going to rent out, but it's specifically for stocking items at this location that will be used for rental use. Now the value of this is that when you add products or items or assets to these locations, you can then, looking from the products module, let's say we're looking at this Apple TV product, we click on the stock tab, we can see then the various locations that this item is linked to. And let's say that we've got 5 items at that new rental location. Let's go and add those in there. So there's the rental stores location. And we'll say that there's a quantity of 5 at that location. Then we'll specify what's the serial numbers for that item, which in this case we're specifying them automatically. But there's another option where you can specify for a product that you would use the serial number on the product. So now we can see at this rental location we've got 5 items for use. So this is just a method for breaking down the different types of locations and their usage from a stock point of view. Some of the other locations in this example are for sell use. So usually items stored in these locations you will sell as opposed to rent. And then we've got an internal location as well, where it could be an office or a demo room or something, or even a person or a vehicle could be a location. Anything or anyone that basically holds on to goods, internal assets, they can be set up as an internal location. Let's go back into the jobs file. We click on resources. Now let's say that a particular item either got damaged or wasn't returned. It could have been lost or stolen or broken. So we'll say that in this case, this particular piece of equipment, when we set it to complete, we're asked, do we want to return the item? Either yes, and it'll return the item back to its normal stock location, or if we select no, we're then prompted to say if the item is broken or lost, press other, otherwise press used. So let's say it was lost. We click on lost. Now we can put in a message regarding the reason. So we'll say that client lost item. They will pay separately. Now, so that's going to just save a note on that asset record. But also what it does is it'll automatically create an expense on that job and it'll add it to the cost tab. And that will mean that that item is now permanently removed from stock. So if we look at the cost tab, we can see here that that particular item has been incurred as a cost to this customer on this job. We could then go and actually invoice out that item from here. So we create an invoice from costs, and we can see that here's the piece of equipment that was lost, and then we can invoice it out by clicking continue from here. So just to recap on the rental and loan related functionality in JobPro, you can rent or loan equipment like assets, or locations like offices and studios, any sort of physical building. And you can manage those locations through the resources functionality that's built into the jobs and tasks modules. You could also, in theory, rent or loan contacts as well, or people, by using the same functionality in the resource tab. But usually rental and loan related functionality is to do with assets, whether it's on jobs or for customers, and locations as well. You can also track whether items that are out on job use or rental use are late. So you could search on the late flag field here and then follow up on anything that should have been returned at this point. Also, you've got functionality that will warn if there's a clash for any bookings for items or locations and rooms where there's a clash between different jobs or different tasks for those dates and date and time ranges.